Sitting at the corner of Lorraine Avenue and West 25th Street, anchored by its signature 137-foot clock tower, the Westside Market serves as a beacon to Cleveland's West Side. Built in 1912, the indoor European-style market looks much the same today as it did to Cleveland's immigrant community all those years ago. Row after row of stands, many family-owned for generations, reflect the ethnic diversity of Cleveland's history. Tenants of Irish, German, Italian, Hungarian, Greek, Polish, Russian, and Middle Eastern descent offer an eclectic mixture of fresh fruits, meats, produce, and cheeses. Today, the Westside Market is surrounded by the city's hottest restaurants and breweries, turning the Ohio City area into a destination for all of Northeast Ohio. Hello everybody and welcome to Cleveland Conversations. I'm Dave Bacon. Today we talk about the Westside Market, and we will do so with two of the people that will be the moving force, shaping it as we go forward. Rosemary Mudry, Jessica Trivisonno. Rosemary is the executive director of the newly formed Cleveland Public Market Corporation. It's a not-for-profit that will serve as the management arm of the city-owned Westside Market. Rosemary has extensive community development, recently served as the executive director of the West Park CAMS Neighborhood Development. And Jessica Trivisonno, Jessica is with Mayor Bibb's office. She is the senior advisor for major projects for the mayor's office for the city of Cleveland. Jessica was a member of Mayor Bibb's transition team, a former economic development director for the Detroit Shoreway Community Development Corporation. Appreciate both of your times and willing to talk about this. We'll take a look at some of the challenges that are going to be in front of the Westside Market, how they overcome them, long-term visions, and why this is important. And let's start there. Jessica, why is this important to the city?
Yeah, good morning. Thanks for having us. You know, the Westside Market opened to the public in 1912 and has really just been a key part of Clevelanders' identities ever since it opened. Even before then, there was a public market across the street called Pearl Street Market. Clevelanders have been shopping at Westside Market and its predecessors for ages. It is such an important, historic, beautiful building that Clevelanders take pride in. It is home to 80 small businesses and over 250 employees, so it's a really important space for small business incubation and support, and have multiple multi-generational businesses that have all had families come up through the market. And then it also serves as a really important place for food access and a great spot to get high quality, amazing fresh food. So for all of those reasons, it's important, and a bunch more that I'm sure we'll talk about today.
Yeah, the thing that always strikes me when I go in there, it's almost like a microcosm of Cleveland. You find Italian foods, you find Slovenian foods, if you like. The neighborhoods are generally all represented in the Westside Market.
Yeah, so the market has this major tradition of being a place for new immigrants to come to Cleveland and want to start a business and bring, a part of their home country into Cleveland. We have multiple businesses that have been there for years and years. Shoe Cray Meats is a good example. Amanda is the current operator. She's a third generation operator. Her parents came over from Ukraine, or her grandparents came over from Ukraine and started the business 64 years ago now. And there's just story after story like that of Westside Market from people who started their businesses there. And then also the shoppers are a real microcosm of Cleveland. People are coming from all over the city to shop at the market. And then we also have about a quarter of our customers come from outside, even the 6 counties that come, surround Cuyahoga County. So we have tourists, we have regulars, we have neighborhood folks, we have people who come over from the east side to shop in the market. It's kind of everybody's space.
So Rosemary, explain to me what the Cleveland Public Market Corporation is and why you wanted to be the executive director of it.
Sure, and thanks so much for having me this morning. So the Cleveland Public Market Corporation formed after Mayor Bibb put forth the Westside Market as a key component of his strategy, and looking at how can we set up the market for long-term success. And really what the model that they came up with is that the premier public markets in the nation have mostly moved to nonprofit management and oversight. And so Cleveland Public Market Corporation formed in order to allow for there to be a nonprofit that could manage both day-to-day operations, but also take leadership in executing a major master plan and vision for the future of the market that would put it on track to be more sustainable, set it up to have diverse revenue streams, and keep people coming and set it up for sort of 21st century success.
What was it that made you want to be the executive director of this?
So, I think for some of the reasons Jessica talked about the market being sort of a microcosm of Cleveland, I spent the last 10 years of my career in community development. And what I love about the market is it's sort of like neighborhood development or community development, but all taking place in one building. So, you get the chance to do that small business support. You get a chance to, help small businesses and newcomers make their dream come true. You get a chance to help think through challenges that the city faces around food access and healthy foods, for all of those reasons. And I think the master plan that was developed in the vision is just really exciting, and I love starting things from scratch. I love putting things together, thinking about strategy. So it felt like all the right things, all of my passions coming together in one spot.
So we'll get to the vision in just a minute. There are some short-term challenges. The pandemic created challenges for every business, especially restaurant type and food, where people didn't have as much money due to the pandemic. What are some of the short-term challenges that you have, and this is for both of you, that you've had to deal with due to the pandemic and the Westside Market with the pandemic?
Yeah, so I will say COVID-19 was a pretty major accelerator in the market, in that there were a lot of businesses that were thinking about retirement, were thinking about moving on to a different space, and then when the pandemic hit, that just made everybody make those choices a lot faster. So when Mayor Bibb was door knocking and was a candidate Bibb, he heard time and time again from residents of Cleveland who asked, what's your plan for the market? The market celebrated its 100th birthday in 2012, and at that point there was a lot of excitement and movement around what's the future of the market? How are we going to preserve this incredible asset for another 100 years? And between 2012 and 2019 there was some fits and starts of what can we do, how can we make these improvements, but all at the end of the day came down to it would be really healthy to have a new nonprofit manager for the market. And so that is part of how we got to the point where we are today. Then the pandemic hit in 2019, and those questions just became more and more timely for people who were visiting the market and thinking I'm seeing a lot more vacancy than I was seeing. I'm not seeing the same businesses that I'm used to seeing. And so one of the opportunities that vacancy gives us is we're able to really reimagine parts of the market. And that's one of the things that we're really excited about is we're so sad to see those businesses go, but at the same time, it gives us a chance to really think about how Westside Market can serve Clevelanders for, its next 100 years.
So, Rosemary, where do we stand with the not-for-profit, hopefully taking over management? It's a process, obviously.
Yeah. So, it's imminent. I came on board in January, and so Jessica and I have been working really closely together. I've been working with the board, connecting with vendors and merchants, hiring a team. So we're starting to make offers and things like that. So we anticipate transition later this spring. I think what transition means, I think a lot of people wonder, what does it mean? So we've articulated this master plan, which is going to take probably 5 years to put together. We have to raise $50 to $60 million. But I think in the short term, the goal of the transition is, in some ways, a success is that people in the very short term don't notice anything different, right? We hand off from city management to us and everything goes smoothly, right? That'll be a huge, sort of first month win. And then I think over the next year or so, you'll start to see some, conversations around, feedback that, the market and the master plan collected from customers, feedback from vendors. And so our goal will be to kind of begin to implement some of those operational changes to really serve both the vendors and the community better. And some of that has to do with leasing and being able to be, as a nonprofit, more flexible in the ways that we can put together leases so that businesses can have access to capital in ways that they haven't. It also means, for customers and their experience, thinking through, how do we ensure that the market feels vibrant and businesses are open and things like that.
So again, both of you, what are the short-term challenges? I mean, I know there's long-term challenges, obviously. There have to be some short-term challenges as well.
Yeah, well, one of the things I was going to mention is something I'm really excited about with the nonprofit operator is just the swiftness that decision-making can happen relative to the city continuing to be the manager of the market. So my favorite example, we have a market manager who oversees a very small staff at the market right now, and that person reports to a commissioner who reports to a director who reports to a COO who reports to the there's all of these levels before you can get to kind of top brass decision making at Westside Market, which has really been a challenge for it to make quick decisions and do something exciting like short-term pop-up events or say yes to things that we've started to be able to say yes to, like the library right now is using some of our vacancy to give away over 10,000 free books. So, there's some challenges in the vacancy, but I think there's a lot of opportunity for the nonprofit to be creative and kind of find different solutions. So I think that is, the vacancy and kind of how people feel when they walk into the market is something that I think they will be able to kind of make some quicker changes on than what the city would be able to do without a nonprofit operator.
Any short-term challenges from your perspective?
Yeah, well, I think certainly just, we're really motivated to make this happen and make it happen smoothly but also quickly. And so, I think there's just, it's a big lift and a big hustle on our end. So, a lot of the challenges are just keeping all of the moving pieces going as quickly as we can, ensuring that we're, putting together structures that allow us to access as many different funding types as we can as we look to raise money to be able to, implement some really important changes physically to the market that serve both the existing vendors and also allow us to develop new spaces like seating in the market and things like that.
Let me ask you this. Has anything surprised either one of you since you've kind of become so involved with the Westside Market? We'll start with you, Rosemary.
I don't know if surprise is the right word, but I think, when you look at a building like the Westside Market, it's, so iconic and you go in there and you're in awe. And, I think sometimes in life you get acclimated to awe, but I don't know if it surprised me, but every time I walk into the building, every day when I arrive, I still feel that initial buzz. It doesn't wear off. It's a place, there's a reason it's magical and special because no matter how many times you've been in there, and if you talk to vendors, I think they feel the same way, there's this hum of life in it, and the building itself has the life, and then the people in it have the life. And so it just continuously, not surprises, but just energizes me getting to come in and feel that power that's in there.
It's amazing that it was built in 1912 when you think about how far technology has come. Mm-hmm. How did they build that back in the early 1900s? What about you? Is there anything, Jessica, that has surprised you about the Westside?
Yeah, I'll say two things. So I've been working on the market for almost 2.5 years now and agree with Rosemary completely that it doesn't wear off, right? All of that excitement. Two things that I've been surprised by. One is as a customer, you walk in and you see so much of the market. You see, 180 stands and all of these, small business owners, and it's just this sensory overload. All of the building systems that are required to make all of that customer experience work are massive and very impressive, like the boilers and the refrigeration systems and just all of the work that has gone into over 110 years of taking a building that was designed in 1902 for butchers and produce vendors based on health and building standards of the early 1900s and how it's evolved to meet the needs of businesses today. And I think that's one of the big challenges going forward, is how do we continue to make those improvements. But just the scale of the systems that go into the market was a surprise to me, and is something I'm consistently like, man, what a huge thing. The other thing that was a surprise is, I think you can feel it, but to know just how interconnected all of the businesses are, where you're like, oh, Don Whitaker owns, 5 stands here, but he started when he was 13 working for Steve Check, who just retired, and Nina started working for Diane when she was 14, and now she bought the business from Ed Meister. Like, just knowing how interrelated all of the vendors are and how much of a community it is, I think you can feel it, but I was, surprised to know just how interwoven everything is.
How have the vendors responded to the potential of a not-for-profit management, and what's their reaction been?
So I think, I feel like I've gotten a really warm reception. I think there's a lot of, I think people have had to face a lot of challenges, but I think there's a lot of optimism, there's a lot of enthusiasm. I think, they care a lot about the market, so they really are hopeful that this nonprofit system is going to work, and I think they know that we have to be partners together in making it happen. I think from both sides, the nonprofit and from them, we feel this sense of like, this is the city, we have asked for this, and the city is now doing it, and so now is our chance to prove that this is a great path to be on, and that we can really take what's already good and make it, phenomenal. We can be the best public market in the nation.
What has the city seen from the vendors and heard from them?
Yeah, I will say this has been a vendor-driven effort for decades at this point, where vendors have asked, like, we would, we're seeing all of these other public markets that have switched to nonprofit operation and are, we're at one point in a worse place than Westside Market, and now are lapping us in that they have, higher sales, more customers, more businesses. So why can't we do that? So this has been something that vendors have asked for a really long time. I think vendors are really bought in on the idea of a nonprofit and really excited about its promise. I always say, though, there's 80 businesses, and if I ask them the same question, I get 80 answers. And then if I ask the same question the next day, I get another 80 answers. And so, that's one of the kind of magical things about the market, is there is so many businesses with their own individual interests coming together and thinking about, okay, well, what's best for the market?
So long term, what are some of the long-term visions? What can this market become? Just kind of, and you mentioned the plan. Can you give us some glimpses and some snapshots of things that are important about where we hope the Westside Market is moving?
Sure. So I think, when they were building the master plan, and Jessica, feel free to jump in whenever, the goal was to think about, okay, we have this fresh food market, we have these vendors, we have this historical building and place. How do we preserve the magic of that? How do we continue to allow this fresh food produce to thrive? And so looking at both sort of how do we update systems, the basement and things like that will allow those who are there to continue to operate and function, and even function better. And then how do we think about, driving more business to the market, creating new revenue streams so that we can keep rents affordable for the fresh food vendors that are there. And so those things I think are really I'm excited about some of the least sexy things, like, redoing the coolers in the basement. But I think for the public, some of the really exciting things that they're going to see over the, 5 years, right? It's not going to be tomorrow, but there's a former men's locker room that is going to be able to be turned into an event space, and the women's locker room will be able to be a teaching kitchen that can serve as catering for that. But you can also imagine all of the amazing sort of both food access partnerships to that, but also opportunities for folks who have never been down to the market to maybe come down, take a cooking class, get acquainted with some of the vendors through doing those kind of fun hands-on activities, and also really allow us to serve the mission of teaching people about how do you cook some of those really rare and interesting fruits that are in the produce hall and things like that. And then where we have a lot of vacancy in the produce arcade, the goal is to think about how do we preserve those fresh food, those produce vendors in a way that allows them to thrive. We are really, really lucky in Cleveland to still have 17 produce vendors. Many of the other public markets are down to 1 or 2. So, that's something that Cleveland can really be proud of, that we've continued to support those folks. So the goal is to create a place for them in the East Wing that will allow them to have modern coolers to help, really create better quality control for themselves, allow them to have like the best, most competitive produce out there. And then that frees us up to be able to bring in some new types of vendors, like prepared foods, vendors that need hoods, right? Like that's not possible right now. And so, as we think about the mission side of things, continuing to be a place for newcomers and things like that, well, many of the folks that approach us want to do prepared food. They want to bring the foods from their home place, and there's not really a way to do that in the market right now. We don't have a commercial kitchen, so the plan would allow a commercial kitchen in the basement so people could prepare some foods on site, and then it would create this food hall where there'd be opportunities for prepared foods. And you can imagine all the sort of microcosm of Cleveland coming together and people being able to like shop and grab something from the butcher, but also being able to grab some lunch and sit down and talk to friends and like linger at the market.
Almost like a gathering place.
Exactly.
Yeah. Is there enough space that you could do fair is the wrong thing, or a wedding? Say somebody wants to have their wedding reception. Is there enough space to do events?
There is. So really, there was a couple things underpinning the master plan. One was wanting to, create a place for businesses to thrive, but another was to actually have the market be financially self-sustainable on its own. The city has been subsidizing the market operations with hundreds of thousands of dollars every year for decades at this point. And so when we looked at what is the future for the market, we thought, okay, right now we have 2 sources of revenue: vendor rent and city subsidy. We don't want to raise rent on vendors, and we don't want to just keep adding city subsidy. So we have to think about other sources of revenue. And one of those is events and special events. So the plan is for the old men's locker room, which if anybody has sat above the radiators at the balcony and eaten a bratwurst, if you look across the market, there's another space that's about 2,000 square feet that will become an event space with another balcony that can seat about 100. And then outside in between the 2 buildings, we're also going to create a courtyard for public seating and also for events. So not only for weddings, but for things like professional development or conferences where you could come in, buy a bunch of food at the different vendors, and all sit, in a shared area and kind of have this really quintessential Cleveland experience of shopping and eating and kind of having it all be on one campus.
The other thing that kind of pops into my mind, Cleveland has become kind of a food scene with the restaurants. Is that space where you hope to bring some of those iconic chefs and so that they have their ingredients in one place?
Yeah, so certainly I think that's part of the excitement of the master plan is, right, having an event space or having that kitchen where you can imagine some of Cleveland's coolest, most interesting chefs coming and teaching a class, and then people going to sit in the event center and getting to like the event space and getting to eat the food, right? So I think for sure the number of partnerships, Jessica kind of talked about the revenue generation, but it's also like, the partnerships, the master plan is also about like making the Westside Market sort of the food hub, the food education center of Northeast Ohio. And so I think all of those partnerships are possible when we create these gathering spaces, and that's some of the most exciting pieces of it.
Yeah, we've already had conversations with Tri-C, for example, about having partnerships with the Culinary Institute and workforce development programs to make sure that we're utilizing those spaces and those partnerships to also bring in new people who might want to eventually buy a business at the market, right? Like we want to make sure that there's good succession planning and that there's good opportunities for people who want to be in this business.
All right, before we wrap up, are there markets you mentioned some of the other city-owned markets that were upgraded. Are there any that are kind of, I don't want to say roadmaps, but success stories that that make you think, we can get where we want to go?
Certainly, and I mean, I think Jessica can talk a little bit more about that. She spent a lot of time, but I mean, I do think the Westside Market has the opportunity to take what can be learned from many of the other markets, but we have a very unique combination of both the very historic building and the sort of fresh food piece. And so many of the markets have some of that going for it, but very few have the sort of iconic building that we have. So I'll let Jessica talk a little bit more about sort of the comparables.
I think Findlay Market in Cincinnati is a really good example. Our vendors visited like 20 years ago, and they were like, I don't know if that market's going to make it. 20 years ago. Now today they visit and they're like, that market has so much going on. It's incredible. They do a really nice job with a couple things. They have sort of weekend pop-ups with short-term rentals, which is another way to add some additional businesses. They also have a business incubation program where once businesses sort of grow out of their stall in the market, they help get them into a storefront. They have just a lot of really amazing programming down in Cincinnati. Reading Terminal Market in Philadelphia is a little bit more of a prepared food market, but a really good example of that place, right? A really fun place to be. And St. Lawrence Market in Toronto is another really good example of public markets that I think are good comps for us.
Well, it seems like both of you can't wait to get rolling. How excited and how energized are you about what's ahead?
Yeah, so I mean, this has been an exciting week for us because I think we're solidifying some things that the two of us have been working on since January 3rd when I started, and so I think the energy and momentum is probably at an all-time high this week. So you're catching us on probably one of the best weeks ever, where we're really gearing up for the transition and really starting to hash out the final details, and that feels really good.
Yeah, we had a board meeting earlier this week, and I will say, I've been thinking about what could this look like for years now, and having Rosemary on board and seeing the board all work together, I feel more confident than ever that we're in the right direction and we have all the right people in place who can execute our vision.
Well, Jessica, Trivisonno, Rosemary Mudry, appreciate the time and insight. Sounds like there's some great things going on. Can't wait to see as we develop how the Westside Market develops and grows down on West 25th over there. It's right by the ballpark and right in the middle of Ohio City. So thanks so much for the time and the insight. It sure sounds like you're excited and you have me excited about it. So thank you very much.
Thanks.
Yeah, our pleasure. It was a lot of fun.
You've been watching Cleveland Conversations. I'm Dave Bacon. We'll see you next time. Have a great night, everybody.